Welcome back to the museum, everybody. Now that we're open, we have taken a little bit of time off with doing our video visits, but my name is Cynthia Walker and we're back today to talk about the 18th century, and that is a big span of time, so we won't touch on everything. But the reason why we're focusing on the 18th century is because this Saturday, July 18th, we are premiering our 18th century Saturday portal. You may have been taking a look at our 16th and 17th century Saturday portals, and this one comes to talk about the 1700s here in Kennebunk as well as in southern Maine. So the reason I'm focusing in on this half-built 3D model here in our upstairs gallery is because this is the Mousom River, at least as it is and as it sits in our half-made model. And the Mousom River was really obviously a boon for anybody living here in the area at the time. It provided both food and fishing, obviously. It provided irrigation as well as sawmill power. So that was a huge, one big reason why people were moving here to Kennebunk, or at least the village of Kennebunk in Wells at the time. And certainly before that, the Wabanaki found the Mousom River to be just as plentiful for their needs. So I thought what I would do today to celebrate the 18th century Saturday that's coming up is to wander around our galleries to take a look at what was happening. So right at the start of the 18th century was the start of the shipbuilding era here in Kennebunk. Again, it started on the Mousom River. Builders quickly realized that the Mousom was not the place to do that. So they moved it to the Kennebunk River halfway through the 18th century. We'll stop here because this is a dress that was created in about 1790, as was this portrait of Eliza Wilde's Born. She was painted in 1796, so you can see the fashions at the time looked like that. And then as we continue, I'll also mention that on Saturday, when we come to premiering the 18th century Saturday, about the 1700s, we'll be talking a lot about the clashes that occurred between the indigenous peoples who were living here and the English and European settlers. It had been happening over and over again in the previous centuries, but in the 18th century, clashes really came to a head as misunderstandings became more and more permanent and ingrained in people who were living here. So we'll learn a little bit more about what shaped this area in terms of wars and the peoples who were living here at the time. So as we head down the stairs, one of the biggest pieces that we have on display from the 18th century that you've probably seen in a couple of our other videos already is the weather vane from the Unitarian church. This is the original weather vane that was installed in the 18th century on the church that still sits across the street. And I'll show you that out the window. So if you want a big example of something that is still sitting on this land from the 18th century, the Unitarian Church is certainly one of them. Again, as is its original weather vane, now sitting here in our gallery. And of course, paintings of that same place that I was just talking about. Another building that's still standing from the 18th century is, of course, Barnard's Tavern, which you would find driving by on Route 1 as you go to Hannaford. There are a couple of examples of artwork created based on that home right here in our galleries as part of the bicentennial exhibit. Now, if you're interested in seeing a full tour of the bicentennial exhibit virtually, we are planning on running those very soon, so please keep an eye on our events page, and you can register for one of those virtual visits where we'll be going, talking in depth about some of the pieces that you see here as I quickly walk by. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight by the end of this video about the 18th century was a lot of us, when we talk about the 1700s, we only focus on the American Revolution obviously happened in that century. So a lot of effort and attention is paid to that history, which it should be. But we'll also be chatting about the slaves and enslaved peoples that were living here in Maine at the time, as well as about what was happening to indigenous communities as they were pushed further and further out of their homelands. So tune in Saturday, July 18th at 12 p.m. here on our website, www.brickstoremuseum.org, and we will see you there for 18th Century Saturday.